This is Robin Cavallaro with the Cavallaro Heath Group of REMAX One, and today I have Erin Lewis of Goosehead Insurance. How are you?
I'm good, Robin. How are you?
I'm doing great. So I have to eat crow and own up to this because when you and I first met, you were with a Dream Queen, which is so cool, and you were doing State Farm. And it wasn't until this past year that I thought when you left State Farm, you were doing more commercial stuff and not in what I call it real insurance anymore with the homeowners property and all that. And once I found out, I was so excited, and I just keep giving your name out to all my clients now. So I'm glad I got that clarified because I was definitely wrong.
Yeah, it's a huge, I think there's a conception out there that a lot of times brokers either tend to focus on the commercial or they tend to focus on the personal lines, is what you call home and auto otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's like the one client that I sent to you, we'll leave the national names out of it, but his deductible and his premium were skyrocketing in order to get him to the settlement table. And within a couple of hours, you had him worked out to a deal he could afford. The deductible was fine. So I greatly appreciate that because you saved him so much money.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think, when I left State Farm almost 2 years ago now, I wanted to have options and choices for our clients. I
Yeah.
love State Farm. They're a great company. So many of my friends are still agents there. My husband's still an agent there. So I have a lot of respect for the company, but we were losing a lot of clients or just losing opportunities because we only had one choice. And so that's
Yeah.
really the difference between your State Farms in all states, even USEA or Geico. They only have the one option that they have, and otherwise you're left being the one who's responsible for shopping, and that can be overwhelming, right? Especially when you're helping them, Robin, you've got so many pieces of the checklist just to get to the closing table, like to make sure you're getting the best combination of price and coverage and value for what you're trying to do. It's like one more step, and it's overwhelming a lot of times. So we're
And
great
what,
to be able to simplify that process.
and what a lot of people don't understand is when the mortgage lender pre-approves the buyer, they're doing it based on an average insurance cost that they expect the buyer to be paying. If it ends up being more than that, they may not qualify at the very end.
Yeah.
And that's when everybody is scrambling. So with you, because you're not tied to one company, do you just like put it in a portal and then shop it around to a whole bunch of companies?
That's exactly what we do. Yes. So it's cool. I mean, our sophisticated technology program allows us to take all of the information at one time, plug it into the system, and then shop everything. Mark, my partner, always says it's sort of like shopping Trivago for a vacation. Go in, spits it all back out, and then you have to be able to go in and analyze. So that's the piece where an agent or broker is going to be helpful, because we'll go in, analyze the carrier. Some carriers want specific business, others don't. Some have limitations, others don't. So you have to be able to go in and figure those nuances out, particular to the client's needs.
I mean, I look at insurance stuff and I'm like deer in the headlights. I just glaze over. I'm like, I don't know. And I'm sure you ran into this a lot too. When Morgan was rear-ended, this was probably about 5 years ago. She'd only had her license 6 months. Here in Calvert, a friend of hers was texting and driving in a pickup truck behind her. Ran into the back end of her. After we looked at our policy, thank God the roles weren't reversed, because our coverage would not have covered his truck being totaled. We were that underinsured.
Wow.
So do you go through and make sure that your clients don't end up in that position, either with their house or their cars?
Yes, that is I'm so glad you brought that up, because liability is the coverage that you're really talking about. That's the coverage that pays out if you're negligent or at fault in causing the accident. And for a lot of people, the car itself may be the biggest asset. For others, it's the income, your assets, everything that you've worked so hard for is tied into why liability is so important. So I always share this because I think it's important. In Maryland and every state in the country, a major claim is settled in three ways. The first is your insurance policy, and it's going to pay out up to the maximum limits. And the thing is, in Maryland, the only requirement in Maryland is that you carry $30,000 for injuries to one person, $60,000 if more than one person is injured, and $15,000 in property damage. So you hit, I mean, most new cars nowadays are more than $15,000, right?
Oh my God, yeah, because,
Yeah,
well, and one trip to the ER is going to be $15,000.
exactly.
So I'm hoping this, let me get rid of this pop-up message. So if I lose you for a second, I'm not going anywhere. Okay. It was something from Google popping up that it was going across my screen. I was terrified that was like part of the recording. Welcome to my world. So, but yeah, if you have to go to the ER and you have to do scans, x-rays, blood work, God knows whatever, that could be 15 grand right there.
Absolutely. And that's on, you know, the 15,000's on property damage, but $30,000 doesn't go very far when it's a serious accident, you know, especially if, I always say, especially if somebody is seriously injured, disabled as a result of a car accident, or God forbid, the worst situation is somebody dies as a result of a car accident. You know, your insurance policy is always going to pay out at the maximum limits. That's the number one that I was mentioning. But beyond that, your assets and your income become at risk. So, you know, they're going to file a lawsuit. You're going to get sued first. The insurance company is going to go through, paying out the maximum normally, and then the rest you're going to be on the hook for, which can be financially devastating. You know, so my recommendation is always to carry at least one time your net worth in liability coverage. So, you know, $200,000 in net worth, you should have at least that much in coverage. For a lot of people, what I've found is that for clients where the household income is $80,000 or higher and they own a home after a few years of paying down the mortgage on the home, most people need what's called an umbrella policy, which is $1 million of coverage on top of your car, your home, you, the person, for libel and slander. And, you know, a lot of people don't realize that they need that. So it's important to have that conversation.
Wow. So, and then what about people like me who are realtors? I mean, I stopped letting clients ride my car because I'm not the best driver, which is why I don't have my car branded. So.
You don't want them to know who you are, Robin? No.
And it's like, I don't want to take a risk on someone going, you know, calling the number on the side of my car going, you just cut me off. I'm like, oh, it wasn't intentional. I'm in a hurry. But what about people who do take that risk and put clients in their car? How big of a chance are they taking insurance wise? And do they have to have special coverage to deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And a lot of times there's an endorsement that can be added onto your car insurance policy that allows you to transport people when you're working specifically for realtors. You know, you take that risk every time you let anybody into your car, though, right? Whether it's friends, otherwise. The key is making sure that you have enough liability coverage in place, because God forbid that happens. You know, insurance is always meant to be the first line of defense so that you don't have to use your own personal assets and income. So that, just making sure that everybody reviews that, I think, is crucial.
Yeah. And then before we had a house with a pool, we'd always heard you have to have special coverage for a pool. Is that really true? Because right now we don't. No.
Yeah. That's so funny you say that. So the pool is one of those triggers when somebody says they have a pool. Oftentimes is when we recommend the umbrella policy, because you normally have kids over, friends over. It's a bigger liability exposure. You know, chance you would be negligent or at fault somehow, some way. So that's a big one. I'd say the other ones are youthful drivers. You know, is typically when we look at that, because they're young, and we've seen it happen plenty of times. Some of those really severe accidents happen when the young kids are driving. And then the third one is investment or rental properties, right? When you have other people living in your house, it's important to make sure that you have enough coverage, because, and being a business owner, right? I always say, even though a lot of business owners don't have significant assets. Regardless, everybody thinks you still do because you have a business, right?
I know. It's like, I've got the printing press machine downstairs, like, to make it ready.
Right.
That's not the case.
No, it's not the case.
If that was the case, I'd have my house on the water and, and a house on the water near Morgan and one in South. I'd be hooked up everywhere. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So those are some of the big ones, and then of course anybody that has assets and income. Those are the four. So pools, kids, rental properties, assets, income.
so another rumor I've heard is, well, two of them. The first one is if you've moved out of your house and you don't notify your insurance company and something happens, then you may not be covered as far as, let's say, God forbid, fire or someone breaks in and damages the house or something like that. Is that true?
So that's a great question, and it depends on the carrier and the company. So what that was happening in that situation is you're falling into a vacancy situation, and every homeowner's insurance policy has a clause in there that says after a certain number of the days of the home being vacant, we're either not going to cover it, or we're only going to cover a percentage of it, or we're not going to cover if vandalism and malicious mischief is the language that a lot of policies use. So yes, typically it's 30 days that you can have the house that's vacant. And then beyond that, you really want to just double check with your agent, the company, the carrier. But there are companies out there specifically who do vacant properties, while your house is either on the market or it's between tenants. So there are options.
Then the other rumor that I keep hearing is if you do certain work in your house without permits, let's just say you're very talented, even if you own your own construction company, but you opt to finish off your basement and not get the permits for electrical, plumbing, whatever. And let's just say there's an electrical fire that started in an area that was done without permits. Is that something that you have to be worried about being covered also?
So I'm not sure that the permits have as much to do with it. Like in policy language, I haven't seen anything that comes to mind for permits. Of course, if it's fire related, specific language under homeowners policies say fire's covered, so it would be covered. The only thing that I'm thinking of that comes down to permits, and it's an important coverage for people to just make sure they have, especially on older homes, is building ordinance and law is a special endorsement that gets added onto homeowners policies, rental properties, that allows for an additional percentage if the code changes, the building law code changes, and you are now required to put sprinkler systems in the house if it burns down. So there's additional coverage there under that, but.
Yeah, when we were stationed in Connecticut, this is the first time I ever had to deal with that. One of my clients was buying a house that the basement was built without a permit, or was finished without a permit. And the county sat there and went back and forth for a couple of days as to whether or not they were going to require everything in there to be ripped out and redone with permits. And so every time now, I just tell my clients the same thing. I'm like, if it's done without a permit, make sure that's in place before you buy it, because you may end up in that situation. And we are starting to see certain counties that are going in and going, you did this without a permit, rip it out and start over. They're not necessarily coming in and adding the permits. So that's where I was like wondering, like, if you got Harry homeowner who's doing this on a beer and pizza budget and maybe a little bit too many beers and doesn't make sure the wires are tied properly, and eventually you do have a fire that burns down the whole house, is that negligence on the homeowner and could cause them not to be covered? Or yeah,
that's one of those situations I definitely wouldn't I'd let the claim adjuster decide.
you're like, please don't do anything without permits. So yeah.
Well, and that being handy on your, we do see stuff like that happens, right?
Yeah, we see it all. I mean, every time I think I've seen it all, someone goes, watch this. Just wait. Like, I'll one up you. So every single time. Well, the other thing I want to talk to you about is, and I'm going to throw you for a loop on this one. You and I met because of the Dream Queen. and with everything you're doing to empower women. And I am absolutely blown away with how much you've grown and you're succeeding with it, and the overall impact that you've had on so many. And one of your coworkers is sort of a prodigy of that, Haley.
Yeah. Yes. So Haley's mom and I met through the Dream Queen Association, what, 6 or 7 years ago now.
Yeah.
She was leaving her corporate job, really stepping into her own business fully. And her daughter, gosh, Haley might be 22 or 23 now. So she was still in high school, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and then here we are 6 years later, and she's having her best month ever right now, this month, April, that she's had in the almost year. She just came up on her year anniversary in February. So yeah, it's cool. You know, if somebody had told me this is where I would be right now, I would definitely have never believed them. Like, this is the impact that one little dream, you know. And frankly, I always say to kids inside of our Gals Lead program, like, don't, and to parents too,
Yeah.
don't worry about your kids being initially, don't worry about them being selfish people, right? Most of us are at some point, and we get over it when we get those selfish desires fulfilled. So like, this whole Dream Queen Association started from a very personal desire to want to really be connected with other positive, passionate, purpose-filled women who wanted to celebrate one another and live their dreams. And so I found 12 women that I knew who kind of fit that category, and we started meeting monthly. And the whole intention was to share about our business, to share our monthly celebrations, what was going well, and then to share our intentions and our desires, what it was that we were hoping to create and accomplish, who we needed to connect with, what our big goals were, just so we could have a support mechanism for one another. And that has grown now to what, 5 chapters. We're in 5 different counties, led by 5 different incredible women. And from that desire, that section on desires, I was reminded of this dream that I had around helping mentor teenage girls. And so being able to build out the foundation and be able to mentor and give back to girls and mostly are in, you know, it's all in Southern Maryland right now. So all 3 public high schools in St. Mary's County, 1 in Charles, and then we have plans for a school in Calvert, some more in Charles. So some cool opportunities are on the horizon with that. But you know, I think it's about staying committed to what you want, what you know to be true. And when you know, if I hadn't acted and created something that didn't exist back then, none of the rest of it would have followed. So it's like always my greatest advice is just do the first next step, and the rest will unfold. You know, it's like, if you're trying to figure out how to build Rome, you're never gonna figure it out. But build the first street, and then build the statue, and then build the next street, and then the city starts coming together. You know, and you look back, it's 8 years now. You look back in 8 years, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Women that have become a part of the organization and all the incredible things that they're doing to give back and support the community, and you know, all of the lives that we're impacting with the teenage girls and teaching them these principles of success have been so cool, you know. But it started with, I wanted other people to celebrate life with, you know.
But I love watching you succeed and work with both of these, because the 2 businesses tie together so well. I mean, over here, you're helping people achieve their dreams and their goals by being their biggest cheerleader and supporter. And over here, you're helping them financially protect themselves. And you know, you can't reach your business goal if you're not financially protected on the insurance side.
Yeah.
And it's so basic.
Yes, it is.
So right now, when everybody
hear this, Robin, I think a lot of times people, you know, like, I was motivated to be in the insurance industry because I saw there was income potential and I figured I could do it, right? But being able to really help people protect their assets, their income, their houses, like, I feel like I get to live out my dream of being an HGTV. Like, somehow I wanted to be in the HGTV world, and this is my way of being able to do it now. You know, being able to see all these houses that you all are selling and, you know, your buyers are buying. It's just fun. It's fun to go through, to see them, to talk with people, to watch you all help them make their dreams reality, and then we get to protect it. I just think it's so cool.
And that's why I love working with you and so many other people, where it's like, it's all about the client. You know, it's not, look what I did, look what I did, look what I did, look what I did. And that's, none of this is about me. You know, I'm the happiest when I get to go to the settlement table because I'm seeing my client reach their goal. I'm seeing them either sell the house that they've been eager to part with so they can move on to the next chapter, or buying their first house, buying their dream house. Just, and it's like watching their excitement. I'm like, this is so cool. And most days I don't feel like I'm working, so, which is awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Um, so right now, with everybody sitting at home bored and trying to figure out how to cut costs and stuff like that, if they gave you a call, could you run the numbers for them and tell them you're either in a good situation, just stay, or here's a situation that may work better for you?
100%. Yeah, in fact, I'll share these. So personally, statistics for me are 75% of the time we can find a better option on homeowners insurance than the one they currently have.
Good.
40% of the time we'll find a better option on car insurance. Sometimes that means that the package goes together. Sometimes it's the home auto staying where they are, but making the switch on the homeowners policy. So we look at all of that, and the best thing to do is grab the policies that you currently have. That way we can compare them. What I always do is compare what you currently have and then what I normally would recommend, or additional endorsements or coverage that generally makes sense on added policies. So yeah, happy to do that.
So, all right. So let's deal with the myth there, because my mom worked in insurance most of my life and she passed away a long time ago. But the one thing that was drilled into my head more than anything from her was, it is always best to have car and homeowners insurance with the same company. So that's not necessarily the case.
Right. It's so funny. I used to think the same thing. With all of the big companies, most of them give the biggest discount for bundling the car and the home insurance. So while oftentimes that's the case, sometimes it just doesn't make sense. Geico doesn't give a huge discount on auto insurance when you bundle with their home product. Other carriers don't give a huge discount on the auto insurance, regardless of whether you bundle with home. So it just depends on the carriers. I just had somebody last week where I thought it would go together, and it ended up that it was a better deal to put them with two different carriers, because the homeowners carrier that we were looking at that was separate from the auto insurance carrier was less with more coverage. So it made sense, right? I know. So not always true.
All right. So mom was wrong.
Unless you're working, like if it's a big store, big shop, one of the big companies, then definitely sometimes it can make a difference. But
Yeah, it's always best to compare your options.
Exactly.
Yeah, not just go automatically, I'm with XYZ for car insurance, so therefore XYZ gets homeowners insurance.
Exactly.
And that was the case with my client that oh my God, I forgot exactly how much, but it was several $100s a month that his bills dropped. Yeah. And he was just over the moon excited. And yeah, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
So do you cover waterfront properties also? Because I know sometimes those are a different monster.
We do. We have carriers that do everything from, there really isn't a property that we can't do based on being a brokerage. We've sourced all of the carriers that are out there. We only work with A-rated carriers, so they're all financially strong, financially sound. But we have waterfront, flood is another big one. So we just had a client who would not have been able to get the house if we could not have gotten the flood. They ended up having to switch the loan type that they were doing to match the flood insurance, but the flood insurance under National Flood Insurance Program would have been almost $4,000 a year. And under the private flood insurance option, just based on the elevation of this property, it was $1,800 a year. I mean, like, that is a lot of money.
It's huge.
Yes. And there's options on flood insurance. Of course, the rental properties we talked about, vacant properties we do. We also do construction, new construction and or renovation construction policies.
Yeah.
So pretty much anything related to home insurance and real estate, we have that whole market covered. And it came, Robin, so the story's kind of fun. So it came from the founders of the company. So Mark and Robin Jones are the name of the founders of Goosehead Insurance, and Robin managed their real estate portfolio out in Texas. Mark was the head of global recruiting for Bain Capital. So they made really good money. They invested in the Texas real estate market, but she got so frustrated when it came to having to deal with the insurance, because she'd have to call this company and that company and this company and that company all to get it taken care of. And then it was a matter of keeping it all straight. And she just thought, and then, you know, sometimes you call and they're not pleasant. Insurance is not always the funnest job in the world to do, you know, so customer service sometimes is lacking, right? So so they created this company really based around the client and their experience, and wanting to make sure that clients had a great customer experience, they were well protected, and they had choices and options all under one roof, so that they could really help them in all ways. So that whole real estate piece is why we can help 75% of the time.
Oh my God, I never realized that, because, you know, I remember before I ended up on the same policy with my ex, for lack of better terms, I would call every company, and Mama would give me a list of what I needed to ask for, and say, okay, tell me your policy for this, this, this. And usually by the time I got to the third one, I'm like, fine, you get it. It didn't matter if it was costing me more or not, because it was costing me so much in time to make all these calls and compare this spreadsheet. And I'm just looking at, I mean, at that point, I'm like 20, 21, 22. No.
Yes.
There were so many better things I wanted to be doing with my life.
Exactly. I give me your spreadsheets. That's what I always tell my clients. I'm like, I know you're going to compare with everybody else. It's the thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Send me what you have. I'll put the spreadsheet together. At least we're looking at line by line. If it makes sense for you to stay where you are, I'm going to tell you that too. Like, I don't want you to leave a better policy and a better price just because I want the business. I mean, that doesn't make sense. You know, I value my reputation more than that.
Oh yeah, no. When you're honest with someone, they remember that, and they will absolutely come back later on when it is the right time to switch.
Yeah.
So, or they're going to like, you know what, she couldn't help me because I had a good policy, but they're going to tell their best friend when they start complaining about insurance, oh, call Erin. She's awesome. She will take great care of you. So, yeah. Well, I'm so glad we could catch up and talk and cover this, because like I said, this is one of those things where I don't really understand it. Like I said, I grew up in the house with a mom that understood all of this, and she started talking. I'm like, I'm checked out.
That's what my kids are doing, I'm sure.
And she's like, it's important to do this and this and this. I'm like, I'll stage your house. You're insured, I'll stage it. So, yeah, but it's, you know, I'm excited that we can finally get good information out there. And like I said, I do apologize for not realizing for the first few months you were doing this, that I had you on a whole different type of insurance program. So, and I think too, that might be a misconception that some people do have when you leave the big names and you go to a broker, that maybe you can't still do the residential stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. A lot of times what people think. Yeah, but like I said, the whole company was built around the real estate business for this purpose.
I'm a hardcore, I'm sold, I'm a believer. So. Awesome. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Robin.
Yeah. Well, we'll do this again, but I greatly appreciate you taking the time to talk.
You are welcome. My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.